Hey everybody, this podcast is a special one. This was the first one I did last year with the infamous Bernie Rogoff. Bernie Rogoff is a special character and just an individual that just makes you smile when you see him. I've had the pleasure of getting to know him for the last few years, and he kind of roped me into helping out with the veterans group that we're a part of, the Jewish War Veterans, Post 344 in Colorado here. Can't say enough good things about Bernie. He has been volunteering into his 90s, which is amazing. And he's a great example of service doesn't stop. You know, you serve your community, you serve your country the entire time of your life, you know, if you want to. And he's a great testament to that, and I respect him immensely for what he's done and what he continues to do, even at 91 years old. So, without further ado.
I'm rubbing shoulders with CEOs and millionaires. I've never seen my vision be more crystal clear. Look in the mirror, see the change in who I used to be. I kept going, knew success would come eventually. But ask about me back then, they said I wouldn't make it. Nowadays they doubt less and tend to ask for favors. Poetic music, that's realness, don't let them tell you different. And if you ever lost in doubt, then follow your intuition. These words of wisdom is for those who's trying to find their purpose. Don't be living just to die, cause only death is certain. I'm working hard so I can toast to my accomplishments. Cause see, I lost it all and I ain't been the same since. I'm more focused, more ambitious, more everything. Grew up with nothing, now I appreciate the finer things. I know it's real when at the shows they ask for autographs. And now they know the name, they ain't gotta ask. Yeah.
You know, first off, thanks so much, Bernie, for doing this. I know it's awesome, honestly, to see the fact that you're a fresh, eager, and always willing to learn something new as far as technology goes. It's awesome that you're 90 years old and on Zoom. So thanks for that. Without further ado, my first guest is Bernie Rogoff. Bernie Rogoff was the past commander for the Jewish War Veterans Post 344 in Denver, Colorado. And Bernie and I have known each other for about 5 years now.
Maybe
and yeah, actually a little bit longer. And we've become friends. I respect Bernie immensely for what he has done and what he continues to do for the community. And I definitely want to be like him when I grow up. Just constantly being involved in stuff, and my passion is the community. So thanks for that, Bernie, and welcome.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's a privilege to share. You know, we old guys like to talk about our past. It gives us yet another venue to talk about who we are and what we are, and we don't get a chance to share that, but you're making that possible. And I'm glad I feel privileged to be able to share.
So tell me, where did you grow up, Bernie? Do you remember where you grew up? Like back home, like in the East Coast and stuff?
Let me start with East Coast. On the New Jersey shore, we had a little home in a little town called Lakewood, New Jersey, which was right on the Atlantic Ocean. And in those days, there were only 71 million Americans. And if we wanted to go to the ocean from the little town that we lived in, we could just go out on any highway, and we'd never had a fear of anything happening to us, of anybody taking advantage of us as young kids. I wake up every morning, and my first prayer in the morning, beside my Hebrew prayer, is thank you, Lord, for opening my eyes in America. And my memories take me back to that little town in Lakewood, New Jersey, where I grew up. I was born in Bayonne, New Jersey, which was a polyglot town of Irish and Polish and Jewish, and that's where I was born. And those were my early beginnings until the time that I signed up to join. And I didn't get recruited. I just signed up to join. My brother was fighting in Germany during the Second World War. I was 15 years old, and it was called the Swiney Sanitarium. And Dr. Swiney was about 6'6" and weighed 300 pounds. And he, for $50, he delivered all the babies of the poor Polish and Jewish and Italian families. And he was quite a guy, but I was 13 pounds when I was born. And my mother was asked, what are you going to name your baby? And she said, well, he's got to be Bernie or Bernard. I don't care what the rest of his name is. Well, Dr. Swiney was this big guy, and I was 13 pounds at birth. So on my birth certificate and all my medical records and military records, my name is Bernard Swiney Rogoff. He put his own name in there as my middle name. So that's laughable, and it keeps coming up every time I have to fill out any papers. Here's this Jewish kid with an Irish name. But anyhow, we grew up in Bayonne, and then came the Depression in 1918. I was born in 1930, so we had the Great Depression in 1935, 36, and my father struggled. He sold ladies' underwear and men's socks and anything to make a few bucks. But my brother was fighting in Germany, and it got to be in 1948, 49. I was actually 47. I was 17 years old. And I went down to Floyd Bennett Naval Air Station in Brooklyn, New York, and signed up to join the Army Air Corp. And my mother signed the papers. And Army Air Corps, I signed up to be in the medical department of the Army Air Corps. I was 17 years old.
And so tell me about that. Were your parents supportive of that? Were they surprised?
They wouldn't. They were very surprised that I wanted to do that at that age. Most young guys were interested in football and baseball, and even then, sports were the main thing.
Do you think that was the time? Do you think a lot of people did that, or you think you were a little bit unique in that way?
Well, if you look at the records, the people who served during the Korean War, which was that period of time when I went into the service, there were many of us my age. I was in high school, and one of my good friends was a kid by the name of Charlie Cruikshank. He signed up with me, and he went over to Korea, and he was one of the first killed in the Korean War. But yeah, many of us did. I'm still very friendly with kids from that era. I still speak to them. I still am friendly with them, even at 90. We keep in touch with each other.
That's great. And then just a little bit more background with your family. Were your parents both immigrants?
My parents were both born in the United States.
Okay. Nice.
My father went to Penn State University. He was in what they call the Naval Reserve at Penn State, and he became one of the first submariners in the Navy.
Okay.
And that followed through even today. I bring you up to date. My son was a Navy SEAL, and of course I served in the Air Force. So we became a military family even up until today. I have two grandchildren who just got out of the Army. So it was woven into the threads of what we thought was important for America.
And did you, when you were growing up, was that part of like your house? Did your dad kind of push some of those ideas and those values into the family as you were growing up, because he was a Navy guy? Or were you in the Scouts, or did you go to camps and stuff like that growing up?
I was in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, and my father was very supportive. We this little town we lived in had only 3,000 people in it. In the wintertime, it grew to 15,000, because it was where Jewish people from New York went in the wintertime to get away from New York, and there were no planes, and people didn't fly to Florida in those days. But we even in those days, we had what we called the aircraft spotters, and Lakehurst Naval Air Station was nearby, and the Navy guys would come over to Lakewood, and we had about 30 of us, and we became aircraft spotters. We would go up into the attic of these hotels that were down there, and we would have to report any aircraft that we saw. We had to learn every Army, military, United States aircraft, German aircraft, and Italian aircraft by sight. And we had to report what we were witnessing. Like there was an F-4F, and it was going northeast, and it was flying at about 300 miles an hour, and it was heading for the ocean. And those are the things we did even when I was 14 years old. And my dad supported that. I was very proud to have his picture in his Navy uniform on my bureau.
Do you think that that really got you intrigued about the military, like having your father as an influence, but then like being around stuff like that and seeing how that was interesting to you, especially with the air, the planes and things like that?
Yeah, that inspired me to go on, and when the time came for me to be able to get into the Army Air Corp, my brother at that time was fighting in Germany. He had just fought in Germany. The war was concluding. He lost 23 of his best friends in one night at the Battle of the Bulge in Germany. And he was my hero. We kept in touch by military mail. We had what we called V-mail. He inspired me too to go on and do the things that I did. And finally, as I mentioned, I joined the Army Air Corp, and I had full support of my family.
How many siblings were you?
I'm sorry?
How many siblings were you?
I just had my brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you joined the Army Air Corps, what made you pick the medical field?
Well, my childhood sweetheart in Lakewood, New Jersey, growing up in schools, the little schools there, was a girl by the name of Barbara Zold. It was spelled Scold, and I was in their home a lot, and her dad was a doctor. And I used to go on house calls with him, even as a teenager. But Barbara Zold's father was Norman Zold, and Norman Zold was the son of Henrietta Zold, who was the founder of Hadassah.
Okay.
And she has just recently passed away, but that was inspirational too, because Norman Zold used to let me carry his bag when he went on house calls, and he was a physician who I respected and I wanted to emulate.
Yeah. So if you can remember at all, when you signed up, can you tell me about the environment in the United States at the time? Obviously World War II was winding down. We're kind of on a high for beating fascism and saving Europe, and then you're signing up right around the time right before Korea really kicks off.
North Korea kicked off. Korea kicked off in '49.
Right.
When I was in that kid growing up and making house calls with Norman Zold, Americans were absolutely patriotic. We had to have stamps for butter. We had to have stamps for meat. We had to have a decal on our vehicle. My dad was given a green decal, which meant that he could get a certain number of gallons of gasoline a week. Those who had a red decal were only allowed 3 gallons a week. And my dad, because he had to earn a living, was given the blue decal. But Americans were very, very nationalistic for America, and not in a way that we experienced with our former president. They just were patriotic and would do anything like what we did, climbing up to the roofs of these hotels and reporting aircraft and whatever it took. We did. And when I was 15, I was in junior high school. We had moved to Englewood, New Jersey. The war had just ended. And one of my friends in high school, one of my baseball friends, and I signed up, and we went and worked on farms in Vermont to help the war effort. So we had to harvest the crops and do the things because there was not enough manpower. So I was doing that while my brother was winding down the war in Germany. So we were very patriotic. There was no division, no left or right or red or blue or Republican or Democrat. We happened to be Democrats. Our president was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We're proud of that guy. We had his picture all over the place.
Do you remember a time recently that kind of felt that way that you felt during that time of part of your life where America was together? Do you recall any time here in the last 20, 25 years where America was like lock and step in the same way as a country?
Well, America grew from 71 million to 330 million people. It became a polyglot. Our population came from all over the world. And for the most part, we grew from the machine age into the age of high-tech electronics. So we were bringing young men in from India and wherever we could get them. Companies like Dell and Microsoft brought these brilliant young people in. So we started to have a mix of people. They were American. Nobody ever spoke against the country, and there was no divisiveness going on. But that all developed, I think, in the 30s, right after, as I was growing up, we witnessed this influx of people who really didn't have that grain, that fiber of Americanism about them. And then, of course, politics came into play after Roosevelt died. Then came the atom bomb with Truman, and people only wanted to migrate to America. So we did see a winding down of that national spirit, that great patriotic spirit of we'll do anything for mother. My mother actually used a riveting gun, helping to make the wings of the Corsair fighter bomber. It was an aircraft carrier-based plane, and women grew from just taking care of home uh, to being welders and riveters and going to the hospitals where our guys who had been wounded. Uh, so there was no winding down in patriotism. I would say that all started uh, around the time of George Bush, when people were inclined to not put country first. It was make a living, make a business, grow your business, and once again, we became either red or blue or liberal or conservative, and the divisiveness started. I would say probably in the 1960s, 1970s.
So, like, basically around the end of the Vietnam War, where we just had a bifurcation of
That was about the end of the Vietnam War.
the OPEC oil embargo, those kind of things.
Going on because of the Vietnam War. There was Kent State, where some of the students were killed, and
the riots in Chicago.
riots in Chicago and elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot of I think soul searching in the 60s per se, with the country and do the values that I think that we like to instill in our youth, are they actually for everybody? And I think we had to have a question about that during those times, especially with the civil rights movement.
I got out of the Air Force in 54. And 55, I became commander of the Jewish War Veteran Post in Englewood, New Jersey. I still have the plaque on my wall. I could probably aim it and show it to you. But I was commander of the Jewish War Veterans when I was the youngest commander in America. And we lived in Englewood, New Jersey at that time. And we did civic things, like we protected the fire alarm boxes so people wouldn't register false alarms and put our firemen in danger. And we became, we became very protective of America and American values. That was in 55 and 56. Yeah.
So your time in the military, where were you stationed during that time in your service? And then I guess in the basic training, because the Air Force hadn't split off yet, I guess it was pretty similar because you were still in the Army. So same basic training. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that? And as far as, like, did you write letters home? Like, what do you think you said? Like, what did your parents say back, or who were you writing to during those times?
Writing home and getting letters from home was a big deal. When I was in the Air Force, well, in June of 1949, we got orders to bring our uniforms to the quartermaster area to clothing. I was stationed, I had been in the Air Force Reserve, or rather Air Force Army Air Corp, and we were told to bring our uniforms to quartermaster, and we did. And we turned in our khaki uniforms, and we were given the Air Force blue, and we were given a certificate that said we were no longer going to be part of the Army Air Corps. We were now going to be the United States Air Force. And that was like, I was stationed in Tampa, Florida, at MacDill Air Force Base. And I was in the medical department doing urinalysis and all that other stuff, that the mundane stuff. And then I got orders to go to Brook General Hospital in San Antonio, Texas, and I was enrolled in medical school at Brook General Hospital, and they put me in, and I studied radiology. We did more in 2 years than the colleges graduate kids today. It takes 4, 5, and 6 years. But we went to school from 6 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and it was 7 days a week. So that's what I did. I studied radiology. I was certified. I went back to MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, and I became part of the cadre of MacDill Air Force Base Hospital for the remainder of my time in the Air Force. And it was very interesting, and I carried that training with me even today. I'm involved. One of my best friends is a guy by the name of Elliot Sandberg. He's chief of radiology at the Denver VA Medical Center, and he and I became very close friends and are still very close friends. But that was how I evolved in my medical training in the Air Force.
Got it. And so you got out in 54, 55, moved back to New Jersey, and then what did you do when you left the service?
Well, when I became a civilian again I stayed in the Air Force Reserve for 4 years, and then I was honorably discharged. And then my dad had been in the garment industry in New York. He manufactured bathing suits and ladies' lingerie, and he wasn't well. So at the age of 19 or 20, maybe 21, I'm not sure the exact time, but I became involved in that company, and I took that company from $19 million in gross annual volume to $61 million as one of the directors of that company. But that's what I did for 37 years until I moved to Denver.
Okay. What made you move to Denver?
Walmart. In those days, every little town in America had its own lady shop and men's shop and privately owned department store, or some privately owned business that a family had started and grew. In Denver, we had Denver Dry Goods, and we had in Pittsburgh, Joseph Horn and Kaufman's. But all of those privately owned department stores were serviced by my company, my dad's company. And we carried them financially. We gave them lines of credit. And then along came Walmart. And Walmart, Sam Walton found a better way to attract the attention of the customer, and the little mama papa stores all over America. We had 9,000 accounts all over America, little tiny specialty shops to department stores. But Walmart destroyed all that. They took that away. We couldn't continue to carry them for more than 30 days or 60 days when they couldn't pay their bills. So our Walmart offered my company a stipend. They offered us money to stay on, and they wanted to buy our name. Some of the names that we had were Kaiser Lingerie, were interwoven socks, Catalina bathing suits, and Walmart came to us and said, look, we want you to stay. We'll pay you. We want to continue those names and make them part of Walmart. But my board of directors said we'd rather go out of business than to give Walmart those names and have Walmart do we used to say, "Don't tread on us," but
Yeah.
that's what happened, and so I moved here. I moved to Denver.
And that was before or after the Walmart situation?
Yeah. Well, Walmart grew, and we had to go out of business.
Oh wow. Okay. Do you think the people that decided not to work with Walmart, do you think they regretted that decision, or they just were happy with the way it was?
Well, I can't ask them anymore because most of them are gone. But I was one of the directors, and I would say uh, I do regret the fact that we gave up uh, that wonderful thing that we built. Uh, and now Walmart is the largest retail corporation on the planet.
Yeah.
But I don't shop there.
Because of the deal?
No, I just quality. We
Yeah.
used to count every we used to count every stitch that went into every garment. We made parachute material for the Air Force out of nylon when silk was no longer available because we were at war with Japan.
Right.
And Walmart didn't really care about those things.
Makes sense. Um and how so you kind of transitioned from the military into the family business
Yes.
after the Walmart situation. Was this the time where you kind of had to really venture out on your own and kind of figure out life, like in some ways?
Well, I was with the company for 37 years, so I had already figured out life and what I was going to do. I was well heeled. I was making in the early seven figures in income, and I had a beautiful home on a mountain in New Jersey, and I used to cross the George Washington Bridge every day, and our evenings were spent on 47th Street going to shows on Broadway or that type of thing. So I had already I stayed with one company for my entire career, which is unusual. Today, most people transition from one company to another company in the field that they knew best. I just stayed in the apparel business, and when I became director of the education of the uh, Colorado National Guard Association here in Colorado, I used to have to go out to Buckley Air Force Base and do orientation with our new recruits, and they used to laugh. They said you went from the Air Force into ladies' lingerie, you know, and that became a big laugh. That was a laughable thing, but
So when you were, I don't think you've ever been retired, to be honest, for as much as I've known you. You've always got something going on, which I always kind of admire. How did you start to get more involved in the community? Did that come from how you grew up? Did that come from the values you kind of learned along the way? Where did that?
are you talking about the military stuff that I do now?
Just in general. I mean, I know that that's one of the things you do, but you're part of the VA board at some point. You were part of. You know, these things aren't small. You know, most people when they retire, they kind of want to chill out. I don't think that's your
I
your
moved
mantra.
to Colorado
Mhm.
in 1998, and I bought a little home in Aurora, and I didn't really know what I was going to do at that point. I was already I was 68 years old or 58 years old,
Mhm.
and my doorbell rang one day, and there was a guy standing at the door in a blue uniform. He said, "I'm your neighbor. I'm General Tom Ferraro. I'm out of Buckley Air Force Base. I'm a United Airlines pilot, and I flew F-16s." Uh, I said, "That's really great. I'm so happy that you rang my doorbell." I said, why are you here?" He said, "I'd like you to have lunch with me. We have a need. We know that you were in the corporate world, and our Colorado National Guard is like 43rd in the nation, and we need some help. We need to raise money so that we can bring defense contractors to Colorado. so that we can see what the new assets are for Army and Air Force. And would you have lunch with us? So I quickly went upstairs and got dressed, and they took me to lunch at the Bent Noodle, and the governor was there, and the commanding officer of Buckley Air Force Base, Dave Sprinkle, was there, General Sprinkle, and he was there. And I said, "What can I do for you? What is it that you want from me? I haven't been in the Air Force for all these years, but I'm willing to listen." They said, "We need somebody to become director of the National Guard Association and work with the governor and get Colorado out of the doldrums." So I said, "Yes, I will do it." And I became director, and I immediately started to raise money and bring companies like Sikorsky and Lockheed and many. I had about 30 major defense contractors came to Colorado for our very first conference. They brought their wares with them. We had 8 or 9 of those conferences where I raised over $2 or $3 million to get Colorado to where they are now. We are the number 2 in the nation. We've just got the designation of space headquarters for Space Command, but that was the beginning, and I was part of that, and I just kept doing. Then I was asked to go on the board of the VA Medical Center, the old hospital up on Claremont Street. So I said I would do that as veterans advocate to help establish the protocols for the care of our veterans. My medical background helped me in that regard. And then I was asked to become commander of the Jewish War Veterans. We used to get 11 men at a meeting and maybe have a guest speaker. Now we get 30 to 40 men at a meeting, or people at a meeting. And we just recently had a Zoom meeting with a young woman by the name of Ariel Sandberg. She's 25 years old, and she's in the Lincoln Project in Boston now. She carries the highest security rank in the nation. And she worked on SpaceX, and she acts Orion and the other space rockets. That's what she does. But I became active in all those things, and that all began with this meeting that I had with General Sprinkle and General Ferraro, and I just have kept doing it. I'm winding down a little bit now because I had a fall, and I'm 90 now, so I just don't have the fiber in me anymore to do as many hours a day.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, you're allowed to take a little bit of break nowadays. What's your...
I'll tell you one story. We were going to I had to make a speech, and Ed Perlmutter, our congressman, was going to make the speech, and I was going to introduce, and I was on the stage up on Colfax Avenue in Denver, and we were waiting for Ed Perlmutter. He was late, and sitting on the stage next to me, waiting for Ed Perlmutter, was this black guy, and he and I started to talk to each other, and he said, my name is Barack Obama. You know me, I'm running for office. I want to become president of the United States. And I said, sure. And we talked, and he said, if I become president, what is the one thing that your 450,000 veterans in Colorado need most? And I said, we need $850 million so we can build a new hospital, because the hospital we're using now is a dungeon. He said, I promise you, if I win and when I'm inaugurated, count the days. And sure enough, about 3 months after he was elected and inaugurated, we got a phone call from Washington that Congress had appropriated the money, the $850 million, to build what is now arguably one of the most important medical facilities for veterans in the nation. So those are part of my memories that I participated in, and I have his picture with me on the wall of my office, uh, because then I'm very proud of the fact that I met this guy who became the first black president of the United States, and he helped build that hospital. And yeah, I have all those memories that I cling to. They sustain me.
What so what do you think about the VA today versus the VA that you knew from before, and the improvements that you've helped bring about here in Colorado in that sense for the VA and the VA as a whole?
VA is actually has taken more hits from unknowing people. I was on Channel 9 News with a woman who said she had 35 letters from people, veterans who were disenchanted and who complained about the care they got at the VA. She waved the 35 letters. We were on the air, and I said, "Madam, you have 35 letters." I said, "Are you good at math?" And she said, "Well, I don't know why." She said, I said, "Well, we have 98,000 patients who are happy, and you have 33 letters of discontent." And that speaks for itself. We have one of the finest medical facilities, perhaps in the world, beside Houston, in the world, to care for our veteran population. And they saved my life. So I'm absolutely proud of the VA and everything that they do. Our director is an amazing guy, and all the other people who came before him are truly wonderful people, very knowledgeable, well equipped. Yeah.
And so, you've done quite a bit in your time. Do you care about legacy at all, or like what people think of you?
I never participated in the things that I do with the thought in mind that I want to be remembered for it, or that I was going to be given any special recognition. That was never part of what I did, and it's not part of what I do now. And when I teach young people today, I formed with another guy, I formed the Education Foundation of the Colorado National Guard in 2003, because our National Guard gets little recognition from the general population, who doesn't really know what the National Guard does. And I became very much involved with providing tuition assistance for men and women and their offspring of the Colorado of National Guard families, of which there are 6,000 in Colorado. But since 2003, I just went over the $1,200,000 mark and have sent over 600 children of Colorado National Guard families to college. That's my legacy. I one day was sitting at my desk at headquarters when I had just become, like, a couple of years into becoming director, and I was thinking about our E2s and E3s who were having a problem. They didn't have cars. They were required to get to headquarters, go to drills, do the things they needed to do. So I met with the RTD board, our transportation authority for the state of Colorado, for northern Colorado, and I said, you need to give these military, whether they're active duty or transients, free rides. They should be able to ride free on any conveyance of RTD, whether it's to the airport or to a game or to military, to a drill or a meeting. They need to ride free. Well, by unanimous consent, they voted to start the Ride Free program so that all military, if they carry the military ID, they ride free. That's my legacy. If you log on to Bernie Rogoff RTD free rides, uh, they miscalculate. They call me Brigadier General Bernie Rogoff. I wasn't a Brigadier General, but I'm proud of that. That's one of the things that I'm very proud of. The free rides, my education foundation. Uh, I'm in the middle of that every day of my life. At my desk. It keeps me going. And instead of lingering in a doctor's office, I'd rather be doing that.
Yeah. With, you know, as you're passing the torch on to other folks, in the future, what would you like to see continue to be built on, like what you've kind of started?
My education foundation is ongoing. We've taken on new board members. I want that to keep going. That's important. It builds morale. It acknowledges the sacrifice of our military families. I want my Jewish war veterans to continue to grow not because of the ethnicity, but because it's a reminder of here are Jewish men who gave their lives. Who gave their lives. We lost over 3,000 Jewish warriors in our wars. I'm anxious to keep that in front of as an historical fact. My work on the VA hospital, I'm so proud of that hospital now. Those are the things that I want to perpetuate and will continue to as long as I have breath in me. I am in touch with a lot of our elected officials. Now on this COVID thing, I've been in touch trying to get the VA, get veterans the vaccine and not be phased into a program. Just the fact that they are veterans and have served our nation, they should be in the top priority of those who are given the vaccine. So those are some of the things that I want to continue to go.
And what do you think that the Jewish community, or what do we think we need to do as veterans with the Jewish community to ensure that there's some connectivity, where I think is just out of sheer numbers and demographics, there's not many of us younger folks that are joining the service in the same way. How do you keep that continuity between, let's say, the Jewish veteran organization, like the Post that we have, with the general community at large?
Well, our Post does. We participate with Jewish Colorado, and not to the extent that we're able to financially, but we do. I personally, when the emissary from Israel was here, a young woman, I can't remember her name. Yeah, right. Being with her, letting her know, sending the message back to Israel that we're here and that we're in support of Israel and we need to continue to be. Jewish Colorado is in my personal life, is on I pay all my bills automatically by electronics through Bank of the West, and one of the organizations that I give to freely is Jewish Colorado, and in the local area where there are Jewish families who are having problem paying their bills, I earmark States or in Colorado. So that's the way. One thing we can do, just by action, by your deeds and not by our words, we can show the rest of the world that we not to the degree that we have been we need to do it even more. But it's like they say, it's within the length of your cable toe. How long is the rope around your neck that prevents you from doing more than you want to do? So I do that.
And so, with that, any parting words for the younger generation in regards to what you want them to push for in the future here? People in their 20s and 30s.
Well, I used to say to my salesman, if you could tell me what the most valuable item in your wardrobe is, I will give you a $500 bonus in your next commission check. You have to tell me what the most important item in your wardrobe is, and then not share it with anybody. And nobody was able to come up with just exactly what I thought of as being the most important item. Some talked about the shine on their shoes. Some talked about the manicured fingernails that they got when they went to Warnaco and had the salon work on them, or the suits that we gave them money to buy at Saks Fifth Avenue. None of them got it. And then finally at one of our meetings, I disclosed to them that nobody really got it, but that the most important item in your wardrobe is your mirror. Your mirror, why? It's the deed. It's what people see on first impression that makes them want to be part of your world. One is a compelling fact. If you look this way and have that carriage, that posture, then other people want to emulate you. Well, that's what I do here in Colorado. I do it by my deeds. Yesterday morning, 2 hours on a Zoom with the United Veterans Committee of Colorado. I think I'm the only Jew on the board, but the Jewish War Veterans of the United States is one of the premier members. And it's by the deed. What I would have to say and what I have said to all the rest of the young people who I've inspired, I hope I've inspired them, is it's got to be by the deed. And that the fact that what you give is will be returned to you in a joy, a type of joy that you cannot possibly get from material wealth. And that's my message. I perpetuate by giving that message and keep sending it out. Thing that hurts me the most is when I get a young kid call me with a Jewish name, and I've never heard of him before or his family, and he says, Mr. Rogoff, I need to talk to you about something, and I can't talk to my dad about it. Those are the things that are hurtful. Those are the things that make me feel that we really haven't done our job as Jewish parents. Why wouldn't a young Jewish kid not be able to speak to his dad about something, about anything? So I go out of my way and I go back to that family and I make sure that I close the gap.
Yeah, definitely. I've always led by example in my book, and I always appreciate that about you. And also, there's a little bit of that stubbornness too. I think you need a little bit of both, empathy and stubbornness, to get things done in the world. And I think you definitely have both. So,
This friend of mine who happens to be the director of imaging at the VA, Elliot Sandberg, it's his daughter who we did the Zoom meeting with the JWB. Mm-hmm. He and I talk, and when I was in high school, my physics professor, we were studying work. And how do you measure work? In what increments do you use to measure work and report what work is accomplished? And I had a 200-pound boulder wheeled into the classroom. And I said, now we're going to learn about work. I said, well, any of you want to start and show me what it means to accomplish work that is measurable? Well, nobody could move that rock until one kid came up and he said that I think what you're asking us to do is impossible, to measure what work is accomplished by moving the rock. I said, that's exactly it. You haven't done work until you have moved the rock. Well, now Elliot, this friend of mine at the VA, now whenever we talk about things that need to get done, they say, as Bernie Rogoff would say, you haven't done it until you move the rock. And that's what I say to a lot of young kids. You've got to do the deed and be proud. Be proud. I am proud of our veterans. I'm proud of all faiths. But I'm very proud of the men and women who have joined the Jewish War Veterans and participate. And I'm proud of a guy like Ben Bretnan, who, even though he's halfway around the world, when we need something, a message to get out to the troops, the bulletin goes. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm grateful for that. That's inspirational.
Just doing my part, and it's easy when people like you are the example on like how to be, or at least to just do your part, and you're a smaller cog in a bigger wheel kind of situation, you know. I mean, it doesn't. I enjoy my time with you guys because it brings me perspective, and like what I think, especially during this year, you know, like what life means to you as an individual. And so I always thank you guys for that.
We're all pretty special folks, veterans. I got a phone call from a young lady when Obama was in his final year. I got a phone call from a woman, and she said, I'm Jill Biden's secretary. And he said, wow, you know, what have I done or what can I do? And she said, it's Dr. Biden and Michelle Obama would like to establish a program called the Military Family Initiative. And we've heard about you, and we'd like to know, we would like to know if you would do a business plan to establish a military family initiative so that the general population will know that the National Guard is not just putting out fires or floods or rebuilding roads. Their families who have put their brethren on the line, and they need to be acknowledged. And so we want to establish this military family initiative that we can use to let the rest of the world know about our National Guard. So I said, well, I'll do the best I can, and I did. And it was adopted. And then I'm not going anywhere. Just stay right where you are. I'm going to get something.
Okay.
And then one day I got a letter in the mail, and it was in a green envelope, pale green stationery, and it had a stamp on it, and it was from the White House. And I had few letters from the White House, but White House letters do not have a stamp on them. They're what they get franked. In other words, the sender is of a caliber and priority that they don't use a stamp, they just sign where a stamp would be. And Gene and I opened the letter. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this.
I can see the letter. Oh, I see. I see. The first lady signed it. Yeah, I can see.
There it is.
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, okay.
So this letter we opened quickly, and it's from Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And it's a personal letter, and it says, "Dear Bernie, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to share your ideas with me. I truly believe that all Americans have a role to play in supporting our honoring our military families, and it is always helpful to receive suggestions about how best to serve our troops, veterans, and their families." And signed Michelle Obama. And one letter like that, or one letter from a kid who says, "I have epilepsy and you helped me graduate from college," or one letter who says, "Mr. Rogoff, when you gave me money to stay at Colorado State when my dad was deployed to Afghanistan, you made it possible for me to continue in college. And the next time you speak to me, you can call me doctor. That's why I do what I do."
Yeah.
You've touched a lot of people in many ways, I'm sure, and I'm sure that it's a combination of things. You know, how you were raised, to the values that you kind of created for yourself along the way, and you know, I think your generation is unique in a sense that you guys probably went through some of the most hardship as a generation, going through the Depression, World War II, Korea. Some people, if they were still doing a career, Vietnam started in the early 60s, you know, being in that time frame, that generation sacrificed a lot. And I think for me anyway, the biggest takeaway from you guys is how you treat people, I think. And when you run a business, you know, obviously I'm very different as far as the business from where you were, what you were doing to what I'm doing right now. But I try to treat people as if they were, you know, the same as, you know, in my squad or my team or anything else, you know, because at the end of the day, you have to rely on each other. And if you can't rely on each other in that way, then what's the point of moving forward with people if they don't feel safe and secure and knowing that you got their back? And so that's kind of definitely what I take from you guys.
Well, we have learned as Americans what it means to have a leader who has no empathy, who cannot experience what it feels like to walk in tight shoes or put the uniform on and put their lives on the line. And when asked, "Who among you will serve?" they said, "Send me." We've just come through a terrible 4 years, and we're hoping that that will go away now with our new president. And I will continue to preach, not because it's a political thing, empathy and feelings and deeds. And this meeting that I'm experiencing now with Ben Bretman from halfway around the world, letting me talk about it, is, I can't express in words what it means to me. And I want to say thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it took a second based on I was in school and work and running a business on this, you know, all together. And it's just now like the volume's kind of turned down a bit. And then I really want to capture the essence of all the people at the Post, but you know, this generation, because I feel we have a lot of value that we we could be losing here potentially, that I want to be able to share with others and try to show other ways on how to do things in life, in business, whatever. But those things have to come with thinking of something bigger than yourself. And that doesn't come easy these days for a lot of people.
Hey, Ben, what is the Fulda Foundation?
So it's a nonprofit that me and a friend started almost 10 years ago now. And we've brought people to Israel. So it's kind of two-forked, like mission-wise. So ideally we deal with like veterans and issues with transition, essentially. We haven't really gotten too much of that off the ground just because we've been busy with life. But then the other part of it is having a Jewish component to it. And so we raise money within the community for programs that we like in Israel. And we sponsor a couple of teenagers every year in a pre-military program. It's designed to get kids from disenfranchised backgrounds, broken homes, assault, things like that, to get them away from their normal environment, to get them out there and to train up to try out for special units in the Israeli Defense Forces. And they have a really high success rate of like 80% of the people that try out for those units usually get into the unit that they want. And we sponsor usually about 2 to 3 students every year. And then we've been working with another program. It's just hasn't worked out in the same way, but it's called Crembo Wings, where the other one first, the pre-military program is called Derek Yeretz. Big shout out to Nitzana and all the campuses out there. They've had a pretty rough year with COVID and everything else, but they're doing okay as far as like getting the kids in the program and kind of getting them out into the community to help out and volunteer and that kind of stuff. But Crembo Wings is another one that really, really struck me as a really awesome program where they take kids with disabilities, and once a week they have other kids around their same age that are high school age generally, and they just have activities for each other where they go and play and hang out together. So the kids with disabilities have friends and their families can get a break from having to take care of them all the time. And they just go to usually the local high school or another designated area, and they just have fun together. And I think it's a really opportunistic time for inclusion, especially in the city that we work in Lud, Israel, which is a mixed town. It's about 50-50 Jewish Arab, and there's quite a lot of religious Jews there, and a lot of the people that are coming there, they all come together during that time because I think the common bond obviously is having a kid with disabilities that they love, but obviously they have to take extra care of in that sense, and you see a lot of cooperation with these families that get together in that capacity, and it really works.
How do you spell that foundation?
Which one?
The one that takes care of deprived kids that are struggling or.
Yeah, so the one with the pre-military is Derek Eretz, and I can send you an email with their videos and stuff.
Send me the names.
Yep, will do. And then there's Crembo Wings, and they're just amazing programs where I think they teach kids the value of inclusion and to accept people for who they are, whether it's a disability, whether it's a different ethnic background or whatever, and I think you just get more out of life when you have an open mind in that sense. And that teaches those kind of values to kids, regardless of what side of the tracks you grew up on. And I think that's important.
Very important. Empathy is a word that we don't teach in our schools. it's one of the words that we don't exemplify. Uh, and I talk about that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was one of those things where I think that, kind of like you, like once I left the service, like I found work pretty easily. It was just a matter of kind of finding my niche on like how to give back to my community in a certain way. And I kind of found that through philanthropy and volunteering and stuff. And so when I talk to people that are transitioning, I always tell them, I'm like, listen, education is number one. Hopefully they have it done already, because most of my friends are retiring from the service, 20 years plus. But after that is just finding a niche, either whether it's faith-based or, something they care about, whether it's other veterans, whatever, but just get involved in community, because it's going to be tough to kind of be out there on your own initially and kind of reintegrating back into society. And I think we try to do that as a society, but I just don't think we have the capacity as a whole. I think veterans just have to take care of veterans in that sense and kind of push the initiative.
FALDA embraces all those different aspects. It's a conglomerate organization as a nonprofit.
Yeah, I mean, we don't particularly care about anything like that. Like we had a couple service projects in Israel, and we brought like almost over 20 something volunteers, and I would say more than half were actually not Jewish. They just wanted to come see Israel for what it is and kind of enjoy that time there and see how this country is constantly changing. And obviously things are like anywhere else in life, up and down, but the people are resilient, and you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. You definitely should get there and kind of figure things out on your own. I just provide the trip or that kind of thing in that sense. What's really been interesting for me is being part of the JCRC, the Jewish Community Relations Council, and representing the Jewish war veterans in that capacity. One, because I just think, I'm younger than most folks, but secondly, I think the military is bipartisan, in a sense of support, right? And so getting in touch with our local legislators to be able to help bring them to Israel to kind of hang out and see the country, but then also kind of create a bond with these folks. I still keep in touch with quite a number of folks that I went on a trip with almost 4 years ago now. And I intend on, going on the next trip, hopefully next year, to take the next batch of new legislators that, we would like to participate in the trip with, to go, because it's an inspiring trip. And I think it helps them at least listen to the other side of the aisle. May not agree with anything that's being said, but at least they have a relationship already established that isn't based on work. And I think that's important.
Well, nonverbal communication is more powerful sometimes than the written word or the spoken word. And I look in your face now, and the message I'm getting is really inspiring, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. There's probably more that I could tell you, but I think I've shared pretty much what it is you're trying to impart to the rest of the world, whoever's going to see this or hear this. I want to say one more thing. I have a hero, a military hero, beside the military heroes that gave money to preserve what became a democracy during the revolution. But my hero is John McCain. He's not a Democrat, but he didn't have to be a Democrat. And I borrowed a speech that I made on one of the Sabbaths at Temple Sinai, and I used his speech, what he wrote, and it's really pretty special what he said about Americans, and it could apply to any ethnicity or any religious group. He was a real hero, inspiring guy. So if you needed to say who made you feel that you have honored the traditions, the wonderful things about America, I would say John McCain is one of those guys.
No, I completely agree. I think he exemplified an openness in our society where he
got out of a deathbed to vote for what he believed in. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. And
Yeah.
this country, this big, boisterous, brawling, intolerant, restless, striving, daring, good, and magnificent country needs us to help it thrive. Get this a little bigger. This responsibility is more important than any of our personal interests, political interests, or political affiliations. We are the servants of a great nation, a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that men are indeed created equal. More people have lived free and prosperous lives here than in any other nation on the planet. We have acquired unprecedented wealth and power because of our governing principles and because our government defended the principles, those principles. America has made a greater contribution than any other nation in the international order that has liberated more people from tyranny and poverty than ever before in history. We have been the greatest example, the greatest supporter, and the greatest defender of that order. We aren't afraid. We don't covet other people's wealth. We don't hide behind walls. We breach them. We are a blessing to humanity. And so on this Shabbat, let us all remember that it has been the veteran who bore the battle. Shabbat Shalom, God bless you all. That was my speech on Veterans Day.
This year or another year?
This year.
Yeah. Was it?
when
The rabbi let me do it by Zoom, and so that's one more inspirational thing for me. I think of that man getting out of a deathbed, knowing that he's in the last 24 hours of his life. He went to Washington because he knew that millions of Americans would lose their right to good health. And
Yeah, I remember that, where he gave the thumbs down, walked into the hall. You know, I think there's like being a patriot. Obviously, I think it's different for us than the average person. But secondly, I think being a patriot also means questioning things when your government is going in the wrong direction.
we need to. I'm vocal. People call me when I moved here, they said, "You're nothing but a big mouth Jewish bastard from the East."
Do you think people still say that?
Then somebody said that to me at a meeting when I stood up for something that was, it was at a United Veterans Committee meeting. And as it turns out, I recently was on the Zoom yesterday and this guy was on that Zoom. And I looked over his shoulder, and behind his desk, there was a sign that said Trump. And I had said to the guy back then, "Don't you ever talk to me like that again. It's truth to power, and truth to honor is what we need to hold most dear." So anyhow, I can send you a copy of that McCain speech if you'd like to have it.
Yeah, send it to me. I'd like to read it again. Again, thank you so much for your time. I know even though 90 years old, you are a busy man, surprisingly. I don't think people understand how much you still are doing and how much you love being a part of your community, whatever community that is, whether it's the veteran community or the Jewish community or just being an American. I think that is that's the one thing that we have in common, is that we are multi-layered and multifaceted people, and we wear different hats quite often. And I just want to thank you for always inspiring me to do a little bit more.
even though sometimes.
What I have to do after we hang up is, this is the check. I pay all my bills electronically through Bank of the West.
Okay.
And they send the checks out. In the next few minutes after you and I conclude,
Yep.
this is the check that I sent to the March of Dimes, and it came back for better address. So the next 20 or 30 minutes after we hang up, I'm going to have to find out what a good address is for the March of Dimes. And it's just $15 that one of the donations I made for the year end.
Yeah.
That's on my list. But that's what we have to do. We can't measure the importance of things when it comes to helping others. It has to be from the heart to the heart, and without reservation.
No, I completely agree. And hopefully we can meet again and we can talk about some more stuff, in person, hopefully soon enough, right?
Hope we can do face-to-face soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm missing you guys, and, I'll be gone till probably around April. So, but Godspeed.
What's happening where you are? Will you get a vaccination?
I don't know until I probably get one when I get back, if anything. So, but yeah, stay healthy and stay safe, and we'll definitely see each other again. And thanks again for doing this. You're the first one in the fire, and there'll be plenty more.
I really enjoyed it. I looked forward to it, and Gene was wondering why I was squirming in my chair at 10 minutes to 10. And then I wasn't. I said, I don't know if he was going to call me or I was going to call him, but I'm not going to wait. So.
No, we were good to go. But thanks again, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll see more folks doing more interviews as well. So
I have one more thing I want to share with you.
Okay.
Jean is a licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
She is 81 years old, and she is training at the moment 4 young people, one from Columbia University, one from, I don't know where all of them are from. But I was in the hospital a year ago, the VA hospital, and Jean was invited to attend a ceremony where she would be made a pioneer in the National Order of Licensed Clinical Social Workers. Being made a pioneer is the highest award and recognition that can be given nationally to a social worker. There are 400 have been awarded over the years, and she was going to be one. And the person came into my room at the VA and said, you're not going to be able to go, Bern, because it's in Washington. And I had one of my doctors was a Jewish guy, and he said, he's going. And I said, well, I'll need to be escorted and carried, and I want to go. How is it possible that I'll be able to go? Well, the VA dressed me, transported me, got me to the airport. United Airlines got me to Washington, to the Cosmos Club, which is a club that is frequented only by heads of state. I had a special room that had grab bars in the shower and grab bars by the side of the bed so I could be there. And then they took me into the next day. I had dressed in formal attire, and I watched as my Jean was made a pioneer in the National Association of Social Workers. So the two of us do the same thing.
Yeah.
She's busy right now. She'll have 2 Zoom meetings with students helping them become social workers, to work for other people and help other people. So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Well, you have to, to put up with you, Bernie, she probably has to like doing the same kind of stuff too, right?
Well, when we lost our sound, she came down, got on her hands and knees under my desk.
Yeah.
And reattached, found the cable that was the B port.
Yeah.
To get my sound back.
She's a keeper.
I'm going to keep her. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Have a good day, and all the best, and we'll be in touch. The show is produced and engineered by myself, Ben, out of Denver, Colorado. Be sure to subscribe to our social media or wherever you consume content, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Big shout out to Mike Xavier. Thank you so much for letting us use your music as part of our show. Be sure to check him out as well on social media. And stay tuned for the next show.